Hi. So here let's try to understand method arguments. So in this I will explain about how to pass variables in the method and method overloading and constructor overloading. So how to pass the variables in the method. So we have seen that whenever we write a method in the Java class, it cannot be without parameters. I mean to say it can be without parameters, but it is there are situations where you need to pass the parameters. So there is no use of having the argument which cannot accept any parameter. So we will write few methods where it can pass the parameters, it can accept the parameters. So while accepting the parameter, we have to check the behavior of how a object can be how how an object can behave while passing into a argument. So you might have heard about pass by value and pass by reference. Let's have a look at that. Let's create one class called passing arguments. So when I say passing arguments, I mean to say that we have to check the behavior. How can I pass the arguments into a method? Let's create one main method. So in Java, it is always pass arguments in form of either primitive type or in form of objects. So but in either case it is always pass by value. So Java does not talk about pass by reference. It is always pass by reference, even if you pass a value or if you pass a primitive type or an object. So what does it mean by passing the argument? Suppose you have a method called change me, public static void change me. It takes one argument, say x. So it just changed the value of x to whatever value I have given, will change to 10. So how I pass the method? So I will say change me. I'm having one integer value here, int x is equal to say 20, and I say change me x. Okay, so before changing, if I see what is the value of x, and after changing what is the value of x. So in both case, let's see. So it says that before changing the value of x, before applying the change me method on value of x, it is 20, and even after applying the change me method on value of x, it is still 20. So in case of method, how we pass the argument in Java, it is always passed by value. So whenever I pass an argument, it is a copy of this variable. Whatever variable I am trying to pass it, I will pass a copy of that variable. So that is copy of value of that variable. So whatever happens in change me method, it does not impact the value of x outside of this method. That's the reason the value of x is still 20, even if I apply the change me method on X. Okay, so let's talk about in case of object. Suppose I create one employee object here. I will pass the ID as and value the name of employee as Shiv. So if I print the value of employee, I can see the employee is the ID is 12 and value is Shiv. Okay, so let's create one change method for I will take employee, change employee. I will take employee E, and in that I am changing employee's name to set name to say Sam. So this is before change, before calling change employee method. Okay, now let's change pass EMP. Let's again see after apply this change method. So here if you see that after applying the change employee method, the employee's name has been modified. So here we are passing the reference. In case of object, it passes the reference, that is copy of this object. So once it passes the reference, it is nothing but passing by value here in case of Java, because you are just passing the location of address of employee object. That is nothing but, you can say, a reference of the employee object. So it passes the copy of that reference. So in another way you can say that it passes the value of that employee. So if that is the reference, I can change the reference of that EMP. So this is way you can say that in Java it is always passed by reference. In case of primitive type, it doesn't change the value. In case of object, it changes the value. So in case of object, there are two cases. If object is mutable, then it changes the values. Otherwise, if it is immutable, it does not. So I will tell you what is mutable and immutable later in detail. So for as of now, you can understand that mutable are those objects which can be modified without creating another object. It means that when employee is modified in this method, it doesn't create any object, so it just same reference it can be modified. In case of immutable, when you try to modify, it does not modify the current reference, it creates another reference. So if you take one example, a string in Java is immutable. So if I create str is equal to say Shiv, and if I call one method public static void change str, pass a string argument and just change the value to Sam. Okay, so before calling that method, if I print str, let's see what is the value, and then we will pass this value to change str, and after that let's see what is the value of str. So even if this is the object, is not a primitive type, the value of this str will not change. So it is still it is printing Shiv and Shiv. Okay, so we have understood the concept of pass by value in Java. Let's talk about another topic, that is called method overloading and constructor overloading. So in case constructor is also a method which has the same name as class name, so we can cover that in the same way as method overloading for the constructor overloading. So let's talk about method overloading. So let's create one class, method overloading. So method overloading is a concept. This is a concept which helps in static polymorphism. Okay, so in case of what is polymorphism? Polymorphism is a concept in object-oriented programming where you can have the same name and that can perform different kind of action by passing some set of arguments. So polymorphism is one name and different representation or different operation. So that is polymorphism. That is two type of polymorphism, that is static and dynamic polymorphism. So in Java, that static polymorphism can be achieved by method overloading. So method overloading means, suppose you have one method called public static int add, which returns 3 plus 5. Okay, let's have another method. This method doesn't take any argument. If I create another method with the same name and passing two variables, int x and int y, and returning x plus y. So this is example of method overloading. So method overloading in Java, method loading in Java is achieved by same method name. This is the condition. It should be same method name, number one, and it should be different signature. So method overloading, two methods will be overloaded in a class. Remember that this is particular in a class. This is not across classes. This is in a particular class. So two methods should have same name and different signature. When I say different signature, that is all about this section, argument section. So number of arguments can be different or type of the arguments can be different. So if I add two string here, I say string so return x plus y. You can write another overloaded method. Say I want to add employees IDs, employee E1 and employee E2. Okay, so what I can return? I can return their ID. So you can say E1 dot get ID plus E2 dot get ID. So there could be another form of int of this addition. I can add, say I can return, I want to pass employee 1 only, and I want to say get ID plus 1. So these are the different sorry, it is E1. So these are the different methods I have written that has same name but their signature are different. So when I say signature different, it does not include return type. So while deciding a method overloading, please don't consider the return type and access modifier. So if I have this method, for example, private and public, same method. So here you have given two different methods, method name are same but their access are different. But this is not overloading. Overloading condition is the signature of method should be different. In name should be same but signature of the method parameters should be different. Okay, same time using static or non-static, it doesn't matter. Suppose you are writing same method and removing static, it doesn't matter, it is not overloaded method. So overloaded method is only condition it should have same name and different signature, access modifier or static. Okay, so these things it doesn't include in deciding the method overloading. Let's try to see that when, let's create one method main. So the when should you use method overloading? Method overloading should be used in the place where the two methods which look similar but they do the operation in slightly different way. Suppose here you are taking add, if you don't provide any parameter, it is just adding 3 plus 5. So second parameter where it is doing the similar kind of addition, but if you provide int x and int y, it will add them and return it. So this is something like they are trying to do addition, but the way they are doing addition is slightly different from one to another. So that is the place where you can use operator overloading. In normal programming you will come across a lot of situation where you need to do the method overloading. So let's try to create one main method and say call sysout add method. So when you say sysout add method, it will call you add method which returns 3 plus 5. So another thing you can say sysout add, you want to pass Shiv and then you want to pass Prasad. So that way these two parameters Shiv and Prasad, it will add it. So it will, if you see, it will call the method for the string one. Okay, so it should call the method which is marked for a string. So let's try to add it. You will get Shiv Prasad, it is my name. So this will call this method. So let's try to see few example. Suppose you have, say, byte b is equal to 3 and int I, that is also 3. Suppose you have one method called public static method. I'm creating a static method so that I can directly use in main method. Say print byte b. Okay, another method, so return type of this is say void, because I just want to print it. Second method, similar method, it will take int I. So here I say sys out b, and here I say sys out I. Okay, I have b and I. If I say print b, so what should happen? It should call 3, and let's try to identify. So it call in byte method and printing the value of byte. Similarly, if I say print I, in int, so this will print in int value of I. So what happens if I directly print 3? Which one it should call? It should call the integer one, or it should call byte one. So because 3 can be byte but can be int also. So in this situation, what JVM understands, it will try to pass the value, it will try to use that method where you have such argument which is suiting best in the case of range. So byte 3, it comes in byte, 3 comes in int, but the range of int is more than byte. That's the reason it will look for the method where it has argument of integer type. So that's the reason it will call int. So let's see. So that is calling in int 3. Let's give some other example so that, so in int it will call 5, it will not call the byte. Let's take another example. Say you have add employee here, okay, and you have say add one more method. You say add string s, which returns 1 plus say string dot length. Okay, just keep the example. So it means that if for add you have two methods, one is taking employee object, one is taking a string object. So if you pass, say add, I want to pass employee, say employee is new employee, okay, what will happen? It will just add the ID to +1. ID I am passing say 13, and name I am passing say Max. So after doing this, if I, let's create this example, this employee outside. so that we can get the value. So employee A is equal to new employee and ID is, so it will be E. So after doing addition, if I print, so it should say get ID, it will be incremented by 1. Okay, so I have passed 13 and after that I said E. What is happening here? 1 dot E dot ID. So employee is basically, I have 13 and then I say add E. Why it should print 14? Oh, this is just returning the int. So because it has to set back, it is not setting back to employee. So I will say just add E, print add E, then it will return 40. Okay, so what happens if you call add null? Because both add will have two methods, which one is taking employee, one is taking a string. Both are objects, so it can be null. So if you call directly null, then it will be it will give one compilation problem. While compilation problem, it will be confused which one it should call, which one compiler should call. It should call the string one or it should call employee one. So that's reason it will fail at the compilation level, saying that it is add employee or add string is it is a add method is a ambiguous for this class. So that's reason it is not able to call that one. So how we can do that? We can say that E is equal to null. If I want to use employee, I want to pass null, I can define that method as null and then pass it over there.